as a consultant, this is probably the worst rant for me to do. Financially, this rant is going to cost me money,
This
but
is what we want.
it's yeah, it's it right here, self-sabotaging the business. V squared's there are people at V squared right now going, "Oh God, not
Yeah,
again."
this is what we want to draw out.
Yeah, and I think that's the common thread for a lot of people right now is they feel like they've been grinding. They feel like they've been really beaten down by a corporate game.
Mm.
And that's not a lot of fun. I don't think CEOs understand what percentage of their workforce is actively looking to do something different. And eventually that's going to translate into waves of people doing what I did, which is just starting another business. And those businesses will directly compete against their former companies, the companies that sort of took them for granted, didn't pursue their ideas, were a little bit too scared, too risk averse, whatever it ends up being. Those companies are going to be wiped out by these smaller, more agile, more technology driven, less technical debt, less strategic debt, less cultural debt. I mean, I bang on those drums a lot. But these incumbents are going to get wiped out by companies that are smaller and built by people they refused to listen to. We're already, I mean, you see this in AI. Most of the AI labs are former, I tried to do it at this company and I couldn't do it. Now you're seeing Meta basically poaching people, not just with high salaries, but with saying, look, what they wouldn't let you do, we'll let you do. You can do it here. So come over here. We're going to pay you better, and we're going to give you the opportunity to actually build the stuff you thought you were going to build there. The stuff that they've always been a little bit too conservative, too risk averse. And that's a huge trend right now. If you're a CEO, you need to spend a few minutes listening to the frustration and the burnout and realizing those are the seeds that are forming the companies that will be your biggest competition over the next 5 years. Because I guarantee you, whatever product or service you produce right now, it can be essentially copied, improved, and the company that does it can copy it and improve it for less.
Yeah, it's ironic, isn't it, that that call from a company like Meta to effectively a startup like OpenAI, let's sort of put it in that way, is one of come and have freedom, unfurl your wings and fly. Um, and that's kind of where a lot of the very large organizations get stuck. I know that they do, a lot of, so potential innovation labs and things like that. But actually, doing innovation within large organisations is very, very difficult because you either have to really completely separate them from the processes and the bureaucracies and the politics that exist within the large organisation, which I haven't really done. I haven't really seen done successfully, if I'm honest. I know it's not impossible. Don't get me wrong, but it's very, very difficult because and that you can also bring an envy of, oh, they're the special people, are they, that can break all the rules and yeah, and sort of be very, very well paid, and so it can create that degree of envy. Very well articulated. I saw 2 days ago that one of the biggest reasons for that corporate grind is simply that people, as humans, want autonomy. They
Who
want,
knew?
yeah,
Who knew?
exactly. And I'm going
Who
to go
knew?
further and say something else, which is something that's been very deeply on my mind recently, last week or so, is that this world rewards conformity. It rewards not bucking the trend. It rewards staying in your lane.
Yeah.
But
Oh, yeah.
those same organisations will be saying, "Well, we're an innovative organisation, but that innovation demands those things like autonomy, like people being able to express themselves in ways that perhaps does jar against the corporate structure." So there's a deep irony in a lot of this.
Yeah. When I teach innovation management, I explain, look, you have to come up with some sort of framework to tell your CFO innovation is taking money and oftentimes throwing it out the window. But if you don't do that, you get to the end of the product cycle and you don't have anything else coming up. Part of every product cycle is the end. It's not as if this product, even though it's this can't lose product that you're like, oh, it's never going to stop. We're just going to tack features on until the end of time and everything's going to be great. But you eventually get to the point where margins are compressed and there's a lot of competition on the market and you need something else. If you don't have that, your business just sort of goes into managed decline and eventually goes away. So you have to be able to justify this stuff to CFOs. You have to be able to justify innovation running in a completely parallel track and burning cash. Because that's the reality, right? That is what most innovation leads to, is nothing. But if you're not willing to innovate, what happens to your business? It goes away too. So it really is innovate or die.
Exactly right. Especially if folk are looking for moonshots. A lot of the moonshots are by nature going to be bizarre and wild, and
Yeah, yeah.
that's not I mean, everything has to be justified. That's not an excuse for just burn through
For
money and have
anarchy. Yeah,
fun. Yeah, anarchy.
yeah.
Exactly. Of course, it's not. But you said they're justified to the CFO. Isn't it a shame, or isn't it strange that there needs to be a justification for an innovation budget that may well go nowhere to the chief financial officer? I mean, that, that that
But,
actually gets to the heart of perhaps what the problem is.
well, if you don't have that justification, at least in my opinion, if you don't have it, you get the metaverse, which is where I'm worried that Meta is going again. I think Zuck's doing AI, metaverse style. And there's going to be this, reckoning in 2 or 3 years where investors are like, you spent $30 billion in 2 years. How much money has AI made you? And Zuck goes, watch, monkey. I have monkey. Look, I have a monkey to show you. Look at, hold on. Look. Ooh, AI. And that's going to be, investors are just going to go, not again. I can't believe I fell for it again. That's what I'm afraid of. So if you don't have a CFO there saying, what are we doing? Then you get that metaverse style investment where it's just endless. And you hear consultants pitching this all the time, and I hate it. I know. But the reality is that you have all of these consultants who are saying, look, you've just got to invest because eventually the money will show up. And if you don't invest, you die. And CFOs are right to come up and say, yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense. That's sort of meaningless. Thanks for the platitude. Cool. I understand why you would say that, because it means your budget is bigger and you have no accountability. So of course you're going to say that about innovation, because your innovation consultants are the best paid consultants in the entire business. So of course you're going to say this.
Yeah.
And the reality is you have to have both sides. You have to have innovation management. I mean, this is why I teach it. This is like the whole reason I teach courses, is because you have to have this stuff in place and you have to be able to justify it. It has to lead to something. It can't just be this, constant, well, we're on this horse. Where's the horse going? I don't know, but it's going to be amazing. You just can't do that. It's not going to work.
In your imagination.
Here, just eat this.
Yeah.
Eat this. This is going to be a great trip. But I
Yeah.
mean, that's what innovation consultants really do better than anyone else, is they sell a dream. But if the dream doesn't come true, they're like, and that's innovation, folks. But no, you have to have both sides. It has to deliver at some point, and you have to have a process for saying, look, this isn't going anywhere. Let's put the budget somewhere else.
That's really fascinating that you should say consultants selling a dream, because in many respects that speaks to the heart of the post you've just put up. Which is this, hype pays more than pragmatism.
I got to tell you, as soon as I posted that, I sort of had a little regret. So go ahead, but just
Good.
realize I'm going to be crying in the background a little bit.
I think they're often the ones that are probably telling the truth more. You know, and you know, like you know, I'm not holding back. I felt that one. I felt that one because, you know, this kind of, you know, consultants will be in and out before that hype and before that pragmatism. Sorry, yeah, before that hype or before that dream they've sold collapses. So perhaps from you know, for, even from innovation consultants, that perhaps they've even got a runway that, so what, you know. Anyway, perhaps I've just come on to, you know, like you've caught me in a bit of a cynical mood, which is highly possible, especially when it was kind of like, you know, do you want to be honest and broke, you know, and you know, and you know, because viewers won't know so well that I've sort of been wrestling with this whole issue of kind of, you know, am I damaging my own brand, if I have a brand, you know, through this kind of unvarnished calling out of the hype. And you know, I'm talking specifically with regard to AI, and having to emphasize over and over again, I'm not anti AI. We have this podcast because we love AI, not because we
Yeah.
detest it. You know, you know, um, uh, but I am anti BS and I'm anti hype. But that doesn't pay well. What I mean is that you know, like you know, like nobody, no,
Oh, we got to switch
and
back to the solo shot. Sorry, I can't be on. I can't be on for the
no, I
next
don't
minute.
care. Yeah, I've completely lost my train of thought. I'm sure I had a point there, but yeah, you know, it's just that you know, like, because and when I read your post, I thought to myself again, just like I said with the consultants, these people that are making a lot of money out of hype, very, you know, those poor poverty-stricken monks that are sort of trying to be, you know, and I've personally lost work, you know, because of this, to the
Yeah,
hypists. I know they'll be back to me, and I know one day that integrity will show through, especially as the enterprises and you know, that in a sense
but I
zeitgeist
mean, will
catches
it?
up.
But will it?
Oh no, don't say that.
Will it catch up? I
I
mean,
don't
does
know.
it? Is there really this long game where it pays off in the end?
I don't know. ChatGPT told me there was, so like you've burst my
Okay,
bubble
never
now.
mind. We're good. Yeah, no, we're good. Yeah, we asked an expert. I mean,
Yeah.
that thing's never wrong.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. But you know, for me, it's not because I'm a you know, a marvelously righteous monk. It's because I'm wired in a certain way, in terms of that kind of integrity and calling it out and seeing the logic through it. And because I don't want people to be disappointed, I don't want there to be an enormous crash, and I don't want, you know, it does bother me that there'll be, oh, you know, eye-watering sums of money that are going to be wasted
Yeah.
over this, you know, nonsense that's being peddled at the moment. But yeah, yeah,
So it's something that I feel like we have to do more of. But you're right. I mean, every time I call out hype, it's not just me. I am taking money out of the field because that money doesn't belong there. And there's a genuine case to be made for people like me to shut up, you know, and for people like you to stop being pragmatic and just pitch the hype. The checks will be bigger, we'll get more of them, and as a whole, the AI industry will get more money.
mm.
But the problem is, at some point, the bubble bursts.
Yeah. That's a really good point. I won't have to rush through deleting all my tweets to become a quantum hypist. You know, so I guess there's that. I hope there's
There's
more
always
than
the
that.
next hype cycle. Yeah. Oh,
Exactly.
there's always the next hype
Exactly.
cycle. You know,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, Jim
Exactly. So
Cramer's still got a job, so I mean, that's got to be hope for us.
yeah. Exactly.
All right, let's move on. No more shaking our hands at clouds. Let's talk about something that is hype, but in this is kind of real hype, and it's back to consulting. You know, obviously, industry near and dear to my heart. So Capgemini bought WNS, and so it used to be sort of the consulting companies, especially in IT services. You had consulting companies that were competing against your offshore, your outsourced providers. And so it was US, EU based, primarily Western EU based companies competing against these lower cost sometimes Eastern European, sometimes Asia. Now, I mean, South and Central America are getting into the act of sort of the lower cost IT services, IT consulting. And it's more than that. It's customer service. It is operational support. It's a lot of companies and even entire economies are built on top of this construct of lower cost labor. So that used to be the competition. Companies like Capgemini competing against WNS, which is an offshore. But now offshore companies are competing against AI. And that's, if you're in this field, I called this out a few years back because I was at a conference, and I won't call the company out, but I was at a conference and I was talking to consulting companies. And this was about 6 months after ChatGPT came out, so it was about 2 years ago. And these consultants were in the IT services. It was like they saw the writing on the wall. They were depressed. They knew what was coming. They knew it wasn't, next year, year after that. But here we are, 2025, 2026, and we're seeing these offshore consulting companies competing directly with AI. And I worry because what happens when AI starts replacing these offshore outsourced consulting companies where you're really offshoring to AI? What happens when that starts coming out as a trend? What happens when, some of these companies, what do you think? Are they going to be snapped out of existence? Does consulting have a future?
Uh, I'm not going to speak directly. Consulting, yeah. Well, the first thing I'll just say about consulting in general with this, because there's a lot of these meme posts that are like, you don't need a consultant, that just use this prompt, and yeah,
No,
and
definitely do that because I get paid better. So I have
yeah.
to come in and clean up afterwards. You and I get paid better for
Yeah,
cleanups,
that's
right?
absolutely true. That's absolutely true. And just first to call those out, that's a fundamental misunderstanding of what at least a decent or very, very sort of like highly skilled consultant should be doing. You're not, we're not at that place of replacing that. That the interesting thing was, and this is purely anecdotal. So I was speaking to somebody that they are a consulting company in the UK and they currently offshore development, had been approached by somebody. Now I don't know who that somebody was, who were effectively bringing together what can only surmise was still but another company, another offshore company, but this time that company was augmented. That development company was augmented by agents that were doing development as well, and that could move at 10 times the speed. So now, I can't
Yep.
speak to the accuracy. I've got a lot of thoughts
It's
on
accurate.
AI code development. Okay,
it's
right,
it's
and this
I mean the
probably,
story and the trend,
yeah,
it's
that
accurate.
that's not the
I know
right.
you can't say this, but yes.
Yeah, so we won't,
It's
we'll
real.
leave that. We won't poke
Yep.
that bees nest at the moment.
Yep.
But okay, say if we do get there, then you can see, okay, well, we're already potentially going into a shift, a change,
Yep.
something that's fundamentally different to what it was. And now you've got those offshore development companies that do use AI versus those that don't. Now, that doesn't take those development companies entirely out of the stacking, completely. But then you sort of think, well, if the future shift really is, can I just premise this by saying this, because one of my bugbears with using, well, one of my problems that I've had with using offshore development companies is that they don't tend to push back. They don't tend to get involved in the process of, hey,
Yep.
that was a crap idea. Us as developers here, wherever we are in the rest of the world, in this other place in the world, think there's a much better way of doing this, perhaps from a product perspective or from a technology perspective. They tend to be very, that's what the customer said, that's what we're going to build.
Yep.
And now, if it's going to be that simple, then perhaps in a couple of years we're not too far away from their utter wipeout. And that concerns me because they're not bringing any other value add but pure lines of code to build exactly what I told them to build, even if I'm completely wrong. and really the value add then is kind of pushing back on me from that product perspective. So if that doesn't change, then you could see that complete wipeout potentially. Now, obviously, I didn't want to touch the whole AI dev thing, because we know and you know that good engineers do a heck. It's not just about lines of code. My goodness,
Yeah.
it's about
Yeah.
interpreting business problems and good. The whole swathe of what goes into old school good engineering, which is not something that is based on lines of code pumped out by an AI coding tool. And I just want to factor that in, because there's apparently a FANG VP of whatever had instructed its product managers to treat designers as optional. Because they could go to AI, do it yourself, and if you desperately need these designers, here we see one step away from the redundancy of, but again, a fundamental misunderstanding of what the profession is and what it should be and the value that it can bring. So it's a multifaceted thing, but ultimately, if we treat it as that misunderstanding of what true engineering should be, we look at it as lines of code and producing whatever the customer said and do, to hell with whether it's right or wrong, then yeah, we do potentially see the entire wipeout of eventually of that kind of market. Yeah.
But that's
Ironically,
what most
if
consultants are, right? Though, is when you talk about IT services consultants, that's what most of them are, is order takers. You tell me what code you want written, and I'll write it.
It's yeah, and that's exactly what it should not be. Because there is going to
Yep.
be literally no value add at that point. To not go into just development offshore that does AI and can do it in a nanosecond of the time at a nanosecond of the price.
Yeah, but I mean that's the experience. That's what all of us talk about when we talk about offshore development. And some people say that's a good thing. Believe me, there's a lot of people that like the fact that they go to offshore developers and say, "Look, this is what I want," and that's what they get.
Mm.
They get exactly what they ask for with no pushback. And at some companies, I'm not going to name any names, even though I probably should. We'd be way more popular if I did that. But at some companies, that's literally the appeal of replacing onshore with offshore, is the offshore asks fewer questions. The offshore just delivers whatever executive leaders decide is the thing that should be. And there's no pushback, but there's also no investment in the success of the client. There's no, and I mean, this is something we've been really successful with at V Squared, which is outcomes-based pricing, where we share in the outcome. And instead of it being here's how many hours we bill, or here's the artifact that we deliver, it's here's the value. And we bill based on value delivered. That's been hugely successful for us, because there's this backlash against what ends up happening, which is a lot of offshore vendors go too far in the wrong direction. And they say, look, we don't care what we're building. We're just going to deliver exactly what you tell us, exactly how you tell us to deliver it. And that's that, because you're the client, you're the customer, customer's always right. So and that's some people say, oh, it's a cultural thing. No, it's not. This is the offshore business model. And you're 100% right. If you run that sort of to ground, if you run that to the end of where it goes, you begin to realize that AI does that really well too. If you just tell it what code to write, it'll write that code. Is it always going to be 100% secure? No, and this is sort of what you were referring to and that I can talk about a little bit more freely. There have been head-to-head comparisons where AI, sort of the vibe code paradigm, versus an offshore all-person, all-people team. So it's usually one or two developers with AI versus 20 to 25 developers without it, or just using, basic cursor tools and that sort of thing. So 2 versus 10 times as many. And they deliver almost identical artifacts. And the one that's a team of 2 does it faster, and they're a lot cheaper. So when we talk about 10xing developers, when you put these tools in an engineer's hands and you let them 100% run with it, versus having that team of 25 who's using more traditional type of tools, There's no comparison. You put two people up against 25 and you say they produce the almost identical artifact. And this has been tried. These are things that very large companies with very large offshore teams are doing, where they'll run their customer service versus AI head to head and see what happens. Because that's what the vendors are encouraging. I'm not going to name any of them by name, but they're basically saying, look, run us head to head against your current customer service department. Run our agents against them and see what happens. Do customer success, customer satisfaction type scoring afterwards and see who delivers the better experience. And AI wins or delivers the exact same thing in almost every trial that I've seen. So it's not AI is perfect. It's that when you put AI against these teams that aren't aligned with the business, they don't have the same best interests of the business in mind because they have this real mentality of the customer is always right. You tell me what you want and I'll do that. You don't always get the best results. When you tell customer service agents, hey, just stick to the script, don't vary and don't deviate from the script. There's no latitude here. There's truly no difference between an AI reading the script and following the prompts and following the chain to a person doing it. And you have sometimes higher satisfaction scores with the AI because it seems happier. And I mean, that's really what it is. So this is where I feel like we're in this sort of cliff apocalypse type scenario with companies who, when you do that head to head comparison, it's not that their people couldn't beat AI, but it's the business model. In this business model, humans do not outperform AI. So it's not so, and I want to make that really clear distinction. It's not that humans can't, it's that the way the business is run doesn't let them.
This is the irony then, because people are accusing AI of being a flattener. But
Yeah,
what we've actually already done through these business models is flattened humans and made them ripe for this
yeah.
technology. And that's the actual sad part, is the flattening of the human role, which makes it ripe for the flattening technology.
Well, it's the discretion. AI is bad at discretion,
Mm.
but we've taken so much discretion
Yep.
out of these
Autonomy,
roles.
like we were saying,
Yeah,
the freedom to invest, to have that flexibility, to have that understanding of context. We've stripped it all out and made these roles flat.
yeah. And I think that's the danger. I
Yeah.
think when we look at these offshore companies, I genuinely think a lot of them are just going to disappear in the next three, and not I'm not talking 10 years down the road.
No,
I'm
no.
talking you're going to start seeing this where you have countries with very large percentage of their GDP built into these types of industries, and they just go away. I'm
This is not
genuinely
something
concerned.
people are talking about.
No,
When they look at the economic ramifications, understandably, you look to yourself and your own home. But these are these more global shifts. And do you remember last week I spoke about it's not the march of progress that concerns me; it's the rapidity of the transition period that's coming and the unpreparedness
yeah,
for it. We are.
yeah. What happens when over the course of 3 years you take half of the I'm not saying it
36 months.
disappears
Yeah,
entirely, but when you take half of the segment,
yeah,
and just it goes away, what do you do about that? As these countries, because you look at U.S., EU, developed economies, Middle East, and you have developed economies across the globe, but then you have these service-based economies
yeah.
that could be just massively disrupted. Yeah, and you're right. Nobody else talks about this, and I feel
No.
like this is a bigger theme that needs to be addressed than a lot of the other hype about AI.
Oh,
So,
if only they
yeah,
were. This is my part of what sort of why I feel compelled is because there are real I'm not being a dragons be here type person. Well, perhaps I am actually, but because what's wrong with saying dragons might be over there, so don't go over there, or don't rush over there without giving it some due thought. If you want to take dragons on, that's fine. Yeah. But as
That's fun
well,
to
some
watch.
some
Yeah,
of us
no, great
do.
TV. Yeah,
Perhaps by
great
simply
TV.
saying dragons are over there, I'm taking dragons on. To be honest, that's how I'm feeling at the moment. But
Well, that's how the zombie movie starts, right? The one person that points at the zombie is not going to make it. That person's done.
oh dear, yeah,
Congratulations, you're done. You will not be in the sequel unless you're
yeah,
playing a zombie.
yeah, yeah.
All right. So we promised this last week. We've got to do it. Wrapping it up today with defending the indefensible. We're
Yeah.
going to give each other a line from a job description, and you're going to have to defend it. Here's the line for Stuart to defend. We need people who can take the CEO's 3-page email chain or a 60-minute rambling Zoom meeting and turn it into industry-leading products with market sizes in the tens to hundreds of billions of dollars. Defend it, Stuart. Go.
Okay. This isn't just. Okay, so I'm buying myself time. This isn't just a skill. This is a core competency. You see, when our beloved CEO,
Oh,
visionary CEO,
dear leader, dear leader.
speaks for an
Yes.
uninterrupted hour,
Yes.
what he's actually delivering is a multimodal, non-linear, narrative-driven AI product feature blueprint grabbed from the heavens with divine inspiration. It's your job, nay, your privilege, to decode it. This role isn't about market signals, product market fit, user needs, business strategy, or any of that jazz. This is about emotional transcription. You're not building features, you're building the CEO's sense of needing to be heard. And the world needs that. And it deserves to be expressed in glorious Technicolor cutting edge AI features. Now, the three-page email, composed entirely of confused metaphors, humble brags, and sparked by a recent HBR article he skimmed, that's not a product brief. That's sacred text. Your role is to divine clarity from it like a corporate oracle. And remember, we're not asking you to build what was actually said. We're asking you to build what was meant, or what he'll later claim was meant. Now that's alignment, that's leadership, and that's what we're looking for. And ideally, you've got demonstrable proof that you've achieved this in your previous roles. And if you'd like to give us examples of quantifiable impact, ROI uplift, spiritual alignment, and whatever metrics you've got. That's it.
I went from laughter to being moved to tears. I am truly inspired. I shall send you my resume immediately. I can't.
Oh,
You took a turn about 2/3 of the way through that where you went from being, sort of satirical and laughable to like, it was almost my patriotic duty. It was
stand
almost,
up and salute.
almost, almost. Who is this person? I must meet this person.
Oh, I've got some gifts. I'm wasted. I am. I'm wasted on this podcast.
What are you doing here with me? Jesus. I can't do any of that. That was poetic. And the accent. You owned it with the accent. I have to tell you.
Ah, the
To the
British
rest of the
accent.
planet, yes.
Yeah.
To the rest of the planet, we've been colonized by just that one speech right there. You've recolonized the known world. We are
Oh,
your humble servants. And God save the king. And all right, go ahead. My turn. I can't top that, but I'm going to try. I will try. I'll try to deliver a motivational speech
yeah.
that's worthy of it.
Yeah, must have 5 years experience
No, you're
in
not.
MCP. Why are you laughing? Why are you laughing?
You went straight for the jugular with that. With me, it was sort of a pause. With you, it was just bang. Here's the bus. You're under it. It's over. All right. So, 5 years of MCP. What? You've never heard of MCP? How do you not know MCP is over 5 years old? What are you, new here? Come on. Most of us have known MCP for at least a decade. I mean, in 2002, we had the earliest versions of MCP. How do you not know about this? Of course, you need 5 years of experience with MCP. Anyone without it's obviously unqualified. I mean, wholly inadequate for this entry-level internship role. Come on. Up the game. Put your hustle pants on, like the rest of us have, and get in the game. MCP. Just because you hadn't heard of it, just because it hadn't been invented as MCP, obviously there was an MCP before MCP. What do you think? They just came up with it? It was just like some brilliant... No. I, personally, as the CEO, have over 25 years of MCP experience, specifically with large language models, mind you. Large natural language models. Before cloud. Before we were running anything on GPU. I was running this in those arrays with the arms that would grab the hard drive for you. I was running large language models on those. So as the intern, this is the bar. This is how high you have to jump. And if you can't, you don't deserve this job.
I'm coming to work for you.
Yes.
Man, I just feel
I've
inspired.
got a convert. Yes.
I feel inspired. You sound like a lot of the comments I get on LinkedIn, actually.
That's where I brought it from. I mean, as soon as you said that, I was like, okay, I'm just going to be that person that I truly loathe in my
There's
comments
always one,
every
isn't
time
there?
I say that. Yeah.
Always one.
I literally said that to somebody. Somebody said, it's sad that you have to say this. I said this, I made the joke about, 10 years of experience with large language models. And they said, it's sad that you have to say that.
Yeah.
And I said, because there's always one person who will come into the comments and insist, and literally right below that comment, he arrived. I manifested this person from the ether. And this person said, well, actually, I've been working in this since 2014 when the original ChatGPT and my work at OpenAI led directly. And of course, I go look at this guy's profile. No, he was like some intern at, he had a 3-month internship at OpenAI before that was what it was called. And no, your work did not directly contribute. I mean, come on. I'm looking at what you did afterwards, and trust me, it's not ex-OpenAI worthy. How about I just put it that way? And that's just, so I just channeled that person. Thank you. Thank you to that person.
I love the way you said
for allowing me.
That's what I must be doing, because they always appear. Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been... Did we miss anything? I don't think we missed anything. This was good.
Goodness knows.
This is really
we have a plan?
good. Wait. Kind of? I mean, we kind of had a plan, right?
I probably didn't read it, to be honest, but there you go.
Yeah, no. I mean, ChatGPT wrote it, so that doesn't surprise me. Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, as always, for being part of this. Thank you for letting me be a part of this.
And vice
I have
versa.
fun with this every week. Thank you all, everyone, the tens of viewers. I appreciate it. We appreciate you.
We do.
For next time, if you want us to defend the indefensible in the comments, feel free to drop a indefensible line.
Do it.
And if you've got an idea for a segment for next week, we take requests. We will roast on demand. That's how good we are here. Roasts available on request. So thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
everyone, for joining us and for listening in. Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you,
We'll
Vin.
see you
Bye
next
bye.
week.